What up? What up? Let's go. Let's get it. This evening, we are looking at $100,000 in business funding, right? For you, for your business. And we're ready to rock, ready to roll. I'm excited to share this information. Definitely excited to share this information with you tonight. I'm ready to roll, ready to get it, ready to answer questions. So I want to know where everybody's at, where everyone's tapping in from, and we want to let me just make sure I'm solid this morning. I mean this evening. I'm all amped up. My daughter has gone to sleep a little earlier than normal. So I'm ready to rock. And shout out to those of you that are in the on the parent trap, and loving the journey. And you just gotta appreciate these windows that you have to sneak in. And this, if I have to start with anything, why do this? For me, obviously, and for a lot of us, it's, I want freedom for myself. I want freedom for my wife, for my family, for my kids. I want freedom for everybody. I want freedom for you as well. And one of the ways to be able to access and tap into freedom, to me, is to be able to leverage business credit. Why is that? Because it can be a fast track for you to be able to get the tools that you need, the resources you need, the network that you need, the access that you need to move forward in whatever it is that's going to open things up for you. And again, that could be getting into the right rooms, right? Where there's people that are going where you want to go. I heard so many people talk about, wanting to get in with like-minded people, you know and people not really tapping in with people that are of a like mindset, and how much trouble that causes them, because they're around people that are not going where they want to go, right? They're around people that are dragging them down instead of pushing them forward, right? They're around people that when you share your dream and you share your vision, and you guys share your big goals and your big ideals, and it's outside of what your family has done, and it's outside of, this is a this is a whole um this is a whole thing that it drags down your progress. And you need to be around people that are pushing forward. So if this is, if nothing else, right, being able to get access to the right rooms, and this is where mentorship is like a big one that I want to see. And who's this? Scarface? Real life, or a videotape? What are you talking about, Scarface? Let me know. Is this real life? Yeah, I'm real life. I don't know about you. But thank you guys for tapping in, right? So mentorship, like I said, is huge. So again, if I'm saying that I don't have anybody around me that's pushing in the direction that I want to go, that has this mindset that says, okay, I want to be able to, really just explode things in my life. I want to be able to push forward towards freedom, you know what I mean? Towards financial freedom, towards impact, towards fulfillment. If I want to do that and I don't have anyone around me, a lot of times when you join these mentorships, it's not only just getting the sauce that you need to be able to push yourself forward and to like say, okay, these are the exact steps that somebody can give me the blueprint, right? And I have the money to be able to pay them because I'm going to use business credit, right, to be able to pay them. Um, yep, Scarface. No. I got you, Scarface. I am super live, right? He says, sometimes people are playing stuff on lives, but they're actually really not live. No, 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 no. I am live. I'm here. Like I said, I just put my daughter down to sleep, and if she don't wake up in the middle of this, then we're gonna be live and rocking. If she does, I might have to hop off. Okay, so this is real. So that's the first thing. So who am I? I'm Kyle Alexander, and I am a real entrepreneur. I'm not a lifelong, lifetime person when it comes to financial industry and things like that. I have been rocking with this for the past probably 4 years or so. I'm a musician, probably at heart and by trade. And I at some point I realized, okay, I want to be able to pursue financial freedom. You know what I mean? To be able to predominantly it was I don't want my wife to have to work. You know what I mean? That was the first thing that I was pursuing. But I got on this journey to be able to do entrepreneurship, to get into real estate investment and business and things like that. And on that journey, I learned about business credit, right? In my first mentorship or course that I took, I learned about business credit. I had never heard of it before. And I realized the power of it. And I said, okay, let me just dig into this and start pursuing it. So I started working with companies as a client. And I realized that my personal credit, it was pretty good, my whole life. I never really used it for much. I just was responsible with my credit and didn't do anything crazy. Had a car here, had a couple of credit cards and things like that. But my credit score was pretty good. I didn't realize that set me up for a lot of success. And when I lined it up with the information that I'm about to share with you tonight, that lined me up for a lot of success, right? On the business credit side. And when all was said and done, leveraging the strategy between using my wife and myself and multiple LLCs, I'm gonna break all that down for you tonight. Leveraging these strategies, we got over $500,000 for our household, right? How does that pan out? Over $250,000 each, right? On different LLCs that we were able to obtain in 0% business credit without having to show any tax returns, without having to have any business income proof, any bank statements, any personal financial statements, none of that. So everything that I'm about to tell you is based on what I have done. And the things that I want to share with you are how you can do things even better than I did, even faster than I did. Like what's the blueprint to be able to tap into that earlier and sooner and just better, right? So I'm gonna break down the blueprint for exactly what you need to line up in order to access this. And I want you to ask your questions, right? So if you have a question, then please put it in the chat. I have paid money on top of money, right? To get this information, to know the people that are in this industry and in this realm, so I want to share it with you tonight for free, right? No gatekeep. If you got a question and you feel like there's something, um Scarface, you said virtual address, LLC, corp, etc. Yeah, we can talk about that, right? We can definitely talk about that. We're going to talk about virtual address for sure. I have a couple of pieces of content on virtual addresses that's really important for you to know, and things are changing in the game, right? I'm gonna fast track there for you, just for you, Scarface, just because you're rocking and asking questions tonight. I'll serve it to you. Like I said, I paid money for this stuff, and I want you to be able to access it so you can move yourself forward, move your life forward, your family forward, everything. That's my ideal, is that everybody goes up. You get the information, you get whatever you need to be able to increase, so that we can put real value in the world. And for me, it's like, what is your God-given like purpose? And when you're not worried about money, when you're not worried about how to make things work, that's when I feel like we're thinking, okay, well, what impact am I going to have? Like, what's my greatest gift, that I can pour into the world? And business kind of aligns with that in certain ways, because we're just able to deliver what we do or who we are through the avenues of business, so I find that really interesting. But let's keep going, right? So I'm gonna jump to virtual address very soon, just for the sake of Scarface. Again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. And if you please like this and share this if you're getting any value from it at any point, because we want more people to know about this stuff, because it is a formula that you can access, right? That once you put these pieces together, I'm going to share them with you now. Once you put the pieces together, then you can access it in one form or fashion. Now that's going to vary based on maybe who you work with or what strategies that you use, but once you put these pieces in place, you are set up to be able to do it, right? And that part, like I said, I'm just going to give that to you for free. So let's just jump, just for the sake of time, before I dig into the whole thing. So let's talk about virtual address and LLC, since Scarface asked about it. All right. So the virtual address situation that's part of the LLC setup. So there's two pillars of this access to say, okay, if I want $100,000, if I want, $150,000, if I want $80,000 in business credit, right? There's two pillars. Number one is my personal credit profile, right, needs to be set up in a certain way. Number two is my LLC, my entity structure needs to be set up in a certain way, right? And I'm talking about being able to access this credit card stacking method. Now, our team is able to help with pretty much any type of funding that you might need across the board, right? So some of you might be at a stage where it's like, okay, I've been in business for over 2 years. I've got, 10,000 a month in income, like easy, for the past 6 months or something like that. Or I've got, I want to get a SBA loan so I can take over a business. I want to buy a business, and do these different things. Or I got equipment financing that I need to do. There's different things that we can do. But what this 0% credit stacking approach is very, very powerful, especially because anybody can use it, even if you're brand new. Your LLC could be open tomorrow. If you have these things in place, then you can get access to that, and that can be a big advantage, right? Especially if you use it properly, right? And we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can use it. So let's just talk quickly about LLC, virtual address. So the thing that I shared in my content on virtual address and LLC, right? So the virtual address, if you use one, because the reason that virtual addresses are good and also are problematic is the banks don't like anything that looks unstable, right? And if you think about it from their perspective, if they're going to be lending money out, right, they're giving money to you, to your entity, or whatever the case, they want to know that it looks like this is a stable bet, that this money is going to come back to us. And the more check boxes, are show up as problems, the more issues that you're going to have when it comes to, um, not being able to get approvals, or not being able to get high limits on your business credit cards, right? When you do that. So if you have a post office box, that's almost just like telling the bank, like, I can just come in here and I can just leave tomorrow, right? So, and they have things that they have to concern themselves with as well when it comes to, like, fraud and money laundering and things like that, where people use PO boxes, and just kind of throw them around. You can open one here and stop one here, and it's just very iffy, right, and shaky to them. So a virtual address is technically, for all intents and purposes, is a PO box, right? So you have a mail office box. You typically don't have like a physical location. You don't have a physical key or anything like that. But you're able to traditionally you're able to leverage these things to be able to open your business so that it's not your home address is on the public record, and you're able to do that, and you're able to get funding, on these types of things. Great, right? Only problem is banks have been changing things up recently, and this is like very recent developments, to where they don't like to see virtual addresses as much. Right now, here's the sauce on virtual address. If you are going to do it, right, and please write this down. If you are going to do it, you need to check one thing in particular, right? You need to see, is this address showing up as a CMRA, or a commercial mail receiving agency? Now, how do you do that? I'll tell you exactly. You're going to go to Google, and you're going to put in the USPS zip code lookup, right? Write this down. Zip code lookup. When you look up that zip code lookup, it's going to bring you to a site, and you put in the address, and it's going to have a number of line items right on there. And one of those line items is going to say CMRA, or commercial mail receiving agency. If that is a yes or a Y next to that, then that's a bad move, because that's almost automatically going to be seen as it's just processing mail, and it's this like a PO box, right? So when the banks see that flag, that's immediately going to kick you into a space where either you might be lined up for getting a denial, or you might be lined up for getting a low limit, or maybe you have to submit a bunch of documents that are inconvenient to have to source. So again, that's very important. So the other thing you can do is, whatever address that you are looking at doing, you can look it up on Google Street View. When you look it up on Google Street View, it's going to look like either a nice office building, or it's going to look like not so nice, like a Staples or something like that, or a 7-Eleven or something, where it's technically, you can receive your business mail there, but it's super clear to whoever's looking that this is not your place of business. This is not where you operate. So that can cut you off, before you even start. So that can be a really important thing. So when it comes to that virtual address, like I said, if you do decide to use one, now here's the sauce that I'm going to tell you. If you're on here, here's the sauce. If you just joined, then I'm gonna share this with you, because I paid money for this, right? Recently, our clients are seeing a lot more approvals with using a home address more than any virtual addresses. Why is that? Because the virtual address, again, shows up as a PO box. The home address, even though some people would argue, okay, you can't really get the super large funding with a home address because, like, what kind of business, doesn't have an official address? Cool, right? But when we're talking about stacking up this business credit in the form of, or to the tune of 100,000, 150,000, and again, if you leverage multiple entities and multiple partners and things like that, you can stack that up to 300,000, 500,000, like I have. A lot of things like don't matter when it comes to that. So again, this is not the end all strategy, but if we're saying that you can't convert with $100,000, $150,000, if you can't convert that into new income, then we have some other issues to talk about, right? So you need to be able to be aware of, okay, like, what does it take to actually access that? And this is why we want to remove all of the myths around like what you need and what you don't need in order to do that, right? So this is where some people are actually setting up, right? They're actually setting up a funding LLC that's dedicated for funding, right? So I have an LLC that has everything that the bank wants to see. And again, I'm going to break down, stick with me. I'm going to break down exactly what those things are, right? Everything that the bank wants to see, nicely packaged. And then I have another LLC on this side that is my client facing LLC, right? So again, the name, just like everything about that, it needs to be in a certain way. So what I'm free to do however I want to, you know what I mean? Like what the business does, or the language that I use on there, or the address that I use on there. I can keep that part separate. And then I have a funding LLC. And sometimes people are using the home address on this funding LLC to be able to maximize the approvals, right, on that side. And then this LLC can now fund my other LLC or fund my other entity, right, in the form of maybe it's a loan or something like that. And there's ways, talk to your tax person, whatever the case, but you can have that LLC support another entity, right? So let's see. Yep. So I'm gonna say this. So Scarface says question, but your home address, let's see. Open to everybody send you junk mail when your address gets sold off, people knowing where you physically live. Yep. So here's the answer to that, right? And that's a logical question, right? If I put my home address, people are going to know where I live. If you only use this for funding, who is going to be searching this? Because you don't have a client facing arm to that. This is how that dual LLC strategy can be really impactful, right? Because I say, okay, I've got my funding LLC and I'm strictly using it to get business credit, right? Practically. And then I'm loaning this out. So now I have a whole nother website that's my client facing website, right? That is going to be getting people in. Sorry, I got to delete some comments real quick. I don't know why we got some some crazy stuff in here. But so I'm going to get some other people in, right, on my client facing one. Now, if people let's say I'm doing real estate or something like that, and one of my tenants, is trying to, get crazy, and they're like, well, where is this business located? You know what I mean? And they want to show up. They want to show up at the place, right? But this is my client facing LLC. So now I've got my address, the private address. I've got the name, like whatever I want to do on that, I can keep that part private. And then I have something separate, right, on the other side. I have something separate on the other side that can serve the funding. Again, that can get 100,000, 150,000 easy, right? Now, this is the cleanest way to set it up. If you insist on using a virtual address, then you need to do the method that I just told you, if you're going to use it. Now, here's the last point about using any of these virtual addresses. I had a client, right? A friend that sent me something that someone was trying to qualify for business credit, and they got one of the virtual addresses from Opus, right? Opus is a Opus is a virtual address company that I've heard referenced a lot in my journey, right? Reputable, they got good features and things like that. Cool. However, they got this Opus address and they went to go open an LLC in the state of Maryland. And the state said, you cannot open a business with this address because it's a post mailbox, right? Now, I don't know if that does that mean that Opus is just dead or what, but the thing that I do think is, and here's the nugget that you need to take away. Again, if you're watching, here's the nugget you need to take away is if you are going to use this address, then you don't put in your official business address in the line, you're not going to put PMB, right? You're not going to put PMB. You're not going to put, it's going to tell you like a mailbox or your box number or number 2005 or something like that. Don't put that on your IRS filing. Don't put that on your state filing. So when you get the address needs to come first typically, right? So I get the address first to make sure that everything matches up on the business side, and I can walk through all of the bullet points, right? Again, I'm going to share them. I'm going to go through them now. So Scarface, let me know if that is helpful for you, right? So far, let me know if that's helpful to answer that question that you had, right? About the virtual address. Again, so if you are going to use that strategy, make sure that it's the right setup, right? And make sure you do not put that PMB. So let's just say if you get a virtual address, right? And let's just say from iPostal 1, right? iPostal 1. And they give you a virtual address that's 123 Main Street, Suite 300, PMB 1002, right? What's the PMB? That's your mailbox, right? So it's the whole business is in Suite 300 in this actual building, and your box is is number 1002, right? So you would think, okay, it has to be that number on my mail in order for the mail to get to me, right? But that's not always the case. If you just have the suite number and your business name, so 123 Main Street, Suite 300, and you just have your business name on there, then those companies will typically still deliver your mail to you, right? Now, why is that important? Because if you just have the suite number on your filing and that's what everybody sees, then it's much more easy. Again, these computers are a lot of times the first ones that are looking at these things, and they're approving or denying or categorizing based on just how it looks, right? So it looks immediately like, okay, this is just a suite. This looks more legitimate, right? It seems like a very subtle thing, but that's like a super nugget. Again, if you're going to go that route, if you're not going to leverage the home address, then there are certain things that you need to look out for and keep out of your filing, right? If you miss it the first time, this is why. If you don't have an LLC, then this is the perfect time to be able to set it up properly so that everything is right from the beginning. Because otherwise, you're gonna have to go back, right? You're gonna have to go back and change it. It's not the end of the world, but it's just like moving. You know what I mean? Or it's just like changing numbers or changing addresses. Like you forget you got to call this place, you got to call that place, you got to update it, you got to wait on the phone, you got to wait for you know what I mean? You got to do all that other stuff. And and that can cause a problem, right? So somebody says that can't work because what about everyone else doing? Is helpful for you, Scarface. Glad this is helpful for you. So you said, so you found if you have a PO box, for example, if you order some stuff off Amazon, sometimes they don't ship them to PO boxes. You just use the post office box address and just put your box number. Yeah, that's a possibility, right? You said, can you get mail all the time? That boxes that wouldn't be delivered to a post office box, right? LLC is like 500 a year to keep it open. All right. Hey, now depending on your state, right? And if you're in California, like where I'm from, that then not where I live, but where I'm from, that LLC might be $800 a year. All right. So here's the question, right? Scarface, and this is a question for all of us. If I can't, if this strategy, right? I open a funding LLC, it's going to cost me. Scarface says it's $500 a year, or $600 a year, right? In his state, let's just assume that's what it is. But that gives me access to $150,000 in business credit versus maybe if I didn't do that and maybe I got some denials here, there, or got some low limits and I got maybe 40,000 in approvals or 50,000 approvals, right? Is that $100,000? Are you able to leverage that into new income that can cover that $600 a year? That's the question. As far as like, am I thinking like an investor? Am I thinking like more long term, where I'm gonna keep pushing forward, right? So Ricky Bobby says, yeah, PO won't work. Yeah, definitely. So this is exactly what we're talking about, Ricky Bobby. Post office box is not going to work. And again, a virtual address kind of mimics a post office box if you don't do it the right way, right? So this is what we're talking about. Again, I appreciate your questions. If you're just tapping in, the best thing that you can do, if you're thinking about this, getting funding or like working towards funding, you need to book a call with the team. You need to go to fundingmyfuture.net, hit the little button on there. It takes about 90 seconds to fill out the form and book a free consultation call for yourself. You're going to walk away with value. You're going to walk away with some next steps, an exact blueprint for what you need to do next, right? I can't stress that enough. Free consultation call, right? So we said cloud capture. So I'm you're back. Something wrong with the stream. State what I said again. So I was asking about your question, cloud capture. You said it can't work because what about everyone else doing the same thing that duplicates with the IRS? Are you talking about business? Are you talking about like if I have a business at a virtual address and then there's other people that have this businesses at that same virtual address, and then does that cause a problem like with the IRS or with funding or something like that? Let me know if that's what you're talking about. Okay. And Ricky Bobby, you said set up website too. Yes. So we need a website as well, right? And since we're talking about that, let's just go straight through the business LLC entity structure. We'll start there and then we'll loop around to the personal credit profile. I usually go the other way around, but I'm tapped in with what you guys are asking. So let's talk about that. So we're going to talk about the website, right? And let's see. Here we go. So Scarface says, the question is, how do you pay back the loan that is monthly? And if you took out a loan in an LLC for 150 at 0%, how much do they ask per month? Okay, so this is a good question. And this is not a loan, right? So this is a business credit stacking, right? So you have access to these funds in the form of 0%, typically 0% business credit cards. So I might have a stack, right, where I've stacked up a $20,000 card from one bank. I've got a $15,000 card. Now we're at 35. I've got another $40,000 card from another one. So that's 75. Now I've got another $25,000 card from another one. Now that's 100, right? So, and on and on and on, multiple banks, right? So these cards are not doing anything until you use them, right? So again, it's not a loan, but let's just say for the sake of answering Scarface's question, right? What if I had all 150,000 out? Let's say I got 150 and I had all of it out. How much are they going to require me to pay? It's 1% per month. 1% is the principal. If you're on 0% interest, you're responsible for 1% per month, right? So two things. Number one is that's $1,500 a month for $150,000 worth of whatever you have out. If you decide to take it out, if you don't use the cards or anything like that, it's sitting there, you're not paying anything. You just have access to them. All right. So that's an important point. Number two is if you have access to that and you say, okay, I've got this money out and I have this payment to cover. Here, the smart thing to do is let's use the money that we pulled out, whether we liquidated it on the cards or whatever the case, but let's use that money in a safe account, basically, to handle the auto pay on all the cards that I use. So now that $1,500 a month is coming from the funds that I borrowed from the bank, right? So I'm using the bank's money to be able to pay back the bank while I execute whatever I'm doing in the business. That part is critical because, again, none of this makes sense. None of this matters if you don't have a way to be able to generate new money. You're using money to be able to make money, right? This is not for people that's like, okay, I just need to get out of debt, or, you know what I mean? I need a move to make, or I'm trying to go on vacation or get some, purses and things like that. This is not for you, right? But if you are serious about that, the funds are there for you to use. And this is what I'm talking about, right? So I hope that answers your question. All right, I hope that answers your question. So let's jump back over. And I think I had another question on. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the website. Yep, so Cloud Capture says, if they use the same method to register with the IRS, then the IRS would have multiple businesses. Yeah. So multiple business with the same address. The IRS is not going to trip on that. I'm not a tax professional. This is not legal advice. I'm just saying in my experience, I've not seen an issue with the IRS showing multiple businesses at the same address. How is that possible? What if I have a home address and I run 8 different businesses out of it? I have 8 LLCs and it's all on my home address because they're all run from my home. They have different purposes. They have different clients. They have different, what if I have 20, right? So that is not necessarily going to be a hindrance in itself, right? Now, I thought you were talking about on the approval side, when the bank looks it up, are they going to look up and see, okay, how many businesses operate out of this address? Like that could be a thing. But again, as far as what our clients are seeing, you can still get approvals, especially if you go to the right banks, right? So this is the other benefit of being able to work with somebody that knows what they're doing, is you can access certain banks. If one bank isn't giving you what you want, then there's others that we can go to in our funding sequence. And the sequence is based on your state. It's based on your existing bank relationships. It's based on a bunch of stuff, but we can leverage those little angles to be able to get in and still get you the funding that you need, right? So, but these are good questions, right? Yeah, the business with the same address. So let me know if that makes sense. So you said, so you take one card to service the debt on all the cards. You could, right? Cloud capture TV. You could take one card and service the debt on all the cards. But what I'm saying is, if you have a move that you're making, and we can talk about the moves, right? Let's just say, just off the top, right? I need a construction cost or something like that, or a closing cost for a real estate flip that I'm doing, and I need $30,000 to begin with, right? And I pull out the 30. How much, if somebody was doing the math and somebody was paying attention, Scarface, I know you're tapped in. How much, if it's $30,000, how much do I owe per month if I'm on 0% interest? Somebody please catch this alley-oop that I'm throwing right now. Catch this alley-oop that I'm throwing right now. If I have $30,000, how much am I responsible for each month? $300. So I have $300 a month, right? And let's say that let's say you say you don't even know how to do math. Hey, is this a good time to practice? If you're going to be doing business, math is like hand in hand. If you're really that bad, you need to get a partner, get a wife or something that is good at math, right? So we're going to definitely need that, right? So, but $300 a month. Now, what is $300 a month? Let's say my flip is going to take 6 months. And if anyone is in real estate, you know that 6 months means 9 months, right? So let's just say 9 months. And at $300, so that means it's $2,700 that I'm going to need to cover the payments for that 9 months, for the $30,000 that I took out, right? Or that I used on the credit cards. So I'm just going to use out of that. So maybe I take a little bit more than the 30,000, right? And I give myself enough cushion and I just put that money in the account and let that be the auto pay account, right? So I didn't have to come out of pocket. And this is how you're able, right? You're able to scale this up, and you're able to do this multiple times over, right? Because you can use the bank's money. You're not having to come out of pocket at all. And this is why this is so powerful once you understand the strategy, but it has to be part of a strategy where, again, you are able to make new money, right? Using the bank's money. Now, what is one of the best ways to do that before we go back into the blueprint of how to set this up and all this stuff? What's the best way to do that? Mentorship, I think, is the main shortcut, right? And being able to vet which mentors to tap into is important. But again, when you have business credit, you can access anybody in the world, right? Like the highest tier people, anywhere from $5,000 all the way up to like $50,000. Most people in the world are going to have some sort of program or some sort of, high ticket mentorship or some sort of inner circle or something that is within that range. And technically, if I'm telling you that if you have this stuff lined up, you can get access to 100,000, 125,000, 150,000, 80,000 in business credit, then you can use a portion of that for that mentorship. And like I said, that not only gets you in the rooms with people who think differently or who are like-minded, but that gives you the network, that gives you the tools, that gives you the exact steps that you need to succeed, right? And ideally, The right mentor will have all those things for you. And that is a shortcut. And if that mentor is making a promise that says, if you pay me this 25,000, I will show you how to make $100,000 a month. That's a whole different thing. If you're willing to execute on that, right? Now, this is the other side of it. Do you have the personal development, right? Do you have the mindset? Do you have the skill and the will to be able to push through and to execute on whatever they tell you to do? That's the other part. If you have that solid, then you're good to go, right? And by good to go, I mean, like, these funds are there. So how long does it take you to save up $25,000 to pay this same person that has they know the exact steps. They've done it a million times over. They're super successful. And what they do is they just help other people to do it. And you could be that next person. How long will it take you to save up that $25,000? Right? $50,000. How long does that take? But I'm telling you that if you have this stuff lined up, like I'm telling you right now, 30 days, 40 days, 55 days, 20 days. My last client that came through, from the time she booked a call with the team to the time that she had 95,000 available for her real estate business, 22 days. 22 days, right? So you literally could be sitting on this. And I appreciate this conversation tonight. This has definitely been an interesting one. And I've been playing defense with some of these comments over here, but it's all good. But I'm glad to be able to share this info. And we haven't been able to get to like what is exactly the blueprint that you need, but we talked about a lot of the stuff on the LLC side, right? And somebody made a comment about let me see if you're still tapped in. Yep, Cloud Capture. You made a comment about websites, right? So in this strategy, even if you don't have another LLC set up, there are people that will have different websites set up. Like I said, I have a funding entity or a funding approach for the banks, and then I have a client-facing one. So I might have a website that's strictly for the banks. And what is that? Super generic, right? Super straightforward, very clean, nothing extravagant, but it just looks legit. So I have that set up for the bank. And then I have another website that's set up for my clients that's got whatever name, it's got whatever content I want, however I want to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm free to do what I want there because this is what I'm going to show to the banks in order to get the funding. This is what I'm going to show to my clients in order to serve them. Right. And either if you do it under one LLC, fine. And then one can serve the other. But if you have that separate funding LLC dedicated to that, then you can funnel it that way. Right. So let me know if that makes sense. So again, website. And when we're talking about this business entity structure, right, the website is really important, but it doesn't have to be crazy. So you can just literally go to Fiverr.com, have somebody make a landing page for you for $20, and they can do it probably by tomorrow, right? $15, $30, whatever the case. And when you do that, what needs to be on there? Your business name. You need some sort of logo. You can have a logo created, again, on Fiverr. A logo created, or you can have a you can use AI, certain platforms to be able to create it. But I have a logo, got my name, I've got like some sort of mission or something like what does the business do? And when you have these, here's a little nugget for you as well. What does the business do that is the least friction to the banks? If you can gear what you're doing in any way or form towards consulting, towards some sort of marketing or some sort of education, those in general are going to be a very low friction, right? So if you have that on your website, you have the business address and you have the business phone number and things like that, and all the stuff is the same again across the board. It's all lined up in the same. Then that's all you need for that website. Now, like I said, you can have a totally another website, just get another domain. Again, this is like investment that you have to be making. I might have to pay for multiple website domains or, and again, from the bank's perspective, the less stuff that you pay for, the more risky you are because it's like, I'm not willing to put stuff into my business to push this thing forward. Right. Again, I appreciate you guys tapping in here. If any of this has been valuable, please like this, number one. So tell the algorithm that this is good information that's being shared, and share this with somebody that you know, right? So Cloud Capture, you say NAICS codes. Is that a thing of the past? NAICS codes? NAICS codes is not a thing of the past, right? But there's two things you need to know about this, right? And like I said, I'm giving you guys the sauce. I paid money for this, right? So I'm no gatekeep. So whatever you need to know, put your question in the chat now before I jump off, right? Um, and again, you need to, if you want the direct answers for your situation, right? You need to go to fundingmyfuture.net. You need to, or hit the link in my bio, and you need to book a call with the team so that you can look at your specific situation, ask your questions, and we'll go through that, right? So let's talk about NAICS codes. So NAICS codes, this is kind of that same thing that I just said. If you can gear what you're doing in any form or fashion towards those industries, then those are generally safe. There are some industries that are historically, unsafe or risky to the banks, right? Things like real estate, things like trucking, things like gambling, and things like that, right? Now, depending on the bank, which is again why the funding sequence matters, but depending on the bank, some banks it's like we don't touch real estate at all. Other banks is like, hey, we'll do it, but it's going to be a lower limit, right? Or again, we're not going to do trucking at all, or we'll do it, but it's going to be at this rate, right? So again, if you can gear what you're doing, the NAICS code, fine, right? You want to set that up properly. The thing is, this is the next point. Your business name is also really important because the banks judge you based on your name. So even if your NAICS code, like you set it up properly, is the right thing, but your name indicates that you do a certain thing, when you first kind of walk into the bank and the bank sees that name, they're going to automatically assign you like to that NAICS code, which is why you need the name to be as generic as possible, if possible. And what does generic look like? Generic looks like keyword and enterprises, last name group, keyword solutions, like super boring and super generic, right? And then that gives you the leeway to be able to do what you need to do again on the funding side. And you can either, and we talked about the dual LLC setup or the single LLC setup, right? Or entity. But if you have the dual setup, then I can say, okay, I've got everything set up over here, for the bank and my client side, right? If I've got the single, then I can run it from two angles at once, right? So we can get into that more, but let's just go through the rest of these points, right? And we're talking about the business entity structure. So your name is important. The name is tied to the NAICS code. Cloud Capture TV, thank you for asking that question. Again, you guys, please put your questions in the chat. Put your questions in the chat. The name is linked to the NAICS code because when your name looks risky, now your NAICS code is automatically assigned typically by the banks, right? So that's something we want to be mindful of and avoid. The business address is really important. We already talked about this new strategy that is hot off the presses where people are getting funded when it comes to the 0% stack credit stacking method, right? People are getting funded off of the home address typically more than even some virtual addresses. If you use a virtual address, you just got to do it right according to what I just told you, right? If you missed it, ask the question, right? Now, once that address is tight, the name needs to be the same across all of your information on the business side. And what are those sources? This is your EIN with the IRS. This is your state filing. This is your Dun & Bradstreet if you get a Dun & Bradstreet number. This is your bank information. When you get a bank account, the information needs to be the exact same, right? Any accounts that you sign up for needs to be the exact same. And I'm talking about casing, like periods and dots and like to the T. It needs to be the exact same. Why is this? If it's different, you can actually show up as multiple businesses. The computer, which is doing the searching typically on the initial part, is getting confused because it doesn't know, is this the same business or not? Because those different casings are going to show up in different places and show up almost as different businesses sometimes, right? So this makes this really, really important to understand, is that when it's different, and I'll give you a quick story. I had jury duty the other day, right, in Maryland, and they told us, hey, if you have multiple names on your credit report, like you got married, you know what I mean, or if you have multiple addresses because you moved around a lot, anytime there's a name and an address match, they're going to think that that's a different person, and they can send you multiple jury summons as if you were different people, right? Obviously, nobody wants to do that, but this is the same on the business credit side, where the computer is looking at these business entities. And again, it might be the same entity, could be a very similar name, but that difference makes it show up differently. And when the computer gets confused, what does a confused mind say? Anybody that's in sales, a confused mind always says no, right? So that's when you start getting denials. That's when you start getting low limits. All right. So that's really, really important to make sure that everything is lined up across the board, across all your stuff. I can't emphasize that enough, which is why the address and the name need to come first. So you choose your name and you say, okay, is my name clear? It's not trademarked by anybody. Is it available? You know what I mean? And then and my business address, is the address lined up? Did I do my check? Like Kyle said, like check the Google Street View, check the USPS zip code lookup, check all these different things. And is it solid? If I am going to use a virtual address, if I'm determined to use it, have I at least set it up in a way that's going to be the most impactful and beneficial, right? Once it's all the way the same across the board, you're good to go. Now, next, we're going to zip through these. A business phone number. Ideally, you have a dedicated business phone number, right? And that's not necessarily just your cell phone. That keeps things separate. All right. A local number can be fine. Even you can squeeze by with a Google Voice number sometime, but ideally you've got something. Again, you might have to invest in it, but you've got something like a Grasshopper or a Ring Central, or you've got a Call 8, or these different services that you can get a phone number. And the business website, we talked about that, but you need a domain-based email address as well. So we need a .com, not a Gmail, not a Yahoo, like something like info or your name at such and such.com, right? And that's going to be the most legit. Now, these seem like silly things or seem like very small things, but it can make all the difference when it comes to getting approvals or when it comes to getting higher approvals versus smaller, right? And this can be a big difference depending on who you are working with, because some people only care about the bare minimum as far as just getting, like, pushing you through, which is cool because you can get to a result sometimes quicker. But the difference in that, and let me just tell you, some of my clients, and a client that went with the cheaper option or, went a different way and they got an approval, but the approval was about $8,000, right? On a business credit card, which, hey, 8,000 is dope. You can do a lot with 8,000, more than you had when you started, right? However, I worked with another client, right, under our system that we had. And from the same bank, the same card, we were able to get $50,000 for her. So look at this. We're talking about $8,000 approval versus $50,000. Now that's probably one of the widest ranges that you're going to see. But even if it was $3,000 approval versus a $20,000 approval, does that make a difference? You know what I mean? Even if it was 5,000 versus 15,000, does that make a difference? So all these little things that I'm telling you are what add up to you getting the highest possible limits, right? So let's go through. So we talked about the number, the email address, and then you have your EIN. Again, like I said, all this can be lined up. Your state articles and your operating agreement, Dun & Bradstreet number. You don't necessarily need a PAYDEX score, right? Unless, I'm just going to touch on this real quick. So there's a whole side of business credit. When you hear people online talk about business credit and things like that, where you're building up the business's credibility on its own, right? So you're getting these different trade line accounts where it's like, okay, I'm getting a Uline account, I'm getting Quill, I'm getting Granger, and then eventually later I'm going to build up to another tier where I'm getting a Shell card, a gas card, I'm getting a store card, and then later I'm going to build up to another tier where hopefully at some point I'll be able to get a credit card that's tied to my business that has no personal guarantee. I'm not tied to it in any way at all, right? That is a path. Now the thing is, it takes long to get there, right? And the results once you get there are a lot lower. Again, from the bank's perspective, if they have no recourse to be able to come back on if something goes sideways, that risk is a lot higher. That means that what they put out for that is going to be a lot lower. All right. So the approvals on that. So again, instead of a $30,000 or $50,000 card, that might be a $5,000 or $7,000 or $10,000. Again, if you can make your moves with 10,000, great. If you're adamant about, saying, okay, I need to have this completely separate, I'm willing to put in the work, I'm willing to buy these little things, put in the time, then that's cool. What I'm telling you though, is if you set up these things that we're talking about tonight, you will be lined up and in position to be potentially 30 days away from having 100,000 that you can access, from having 150,000 you can access. That power cannot be overlooked, right? Again, if you're just joining, we're talking about a 50K to 150K And again, if you leverage the strategies, that can go up 200K, 300K, 500K, right? If you use multiple partners and LLCs and things like that, this is the funding blueprint that you can use to be able to push yourself forward and push things forward in your life and your business, right? And if you are just tapping in, make sure you book a call, right? Book a call at fundingmyfuture.net, free consultation where you can go through your exact next steps. It just takes like 90 seconds to fill out the form. You can get your next steps looked at, right? So let's keep going. So on the business side, here's the last thing: is your online business presence needs to be available and visible, right? So what does that mean? If I Google the business name, who shows up, right? Does it show up anywhere? If I put it into Bing, does your business show up? Any normal business is going to show up in these places. So I got a question. So DK Long Senior, let me know if I got that right. So are these no doc lines of credit cards? Yes, exactly. No doc. So everything that I just said, as far as, hey, we've got the 150K, I got a 100K, 80K, you know what I mean? And I can stack all the way up depending on how far I take it. All that is no document. And what does this mean? Like, no tax returns were needed. No bank statements were needed. No personal financial statement. No business plans submitted. Right? And the LLC can technically be brand new. Now, if you build up your LLC's credit score and your Paydex and you do these other things, that can help. But all this can be done from scratch, which is why I'm sharing it with you, because it's such a powerful angle, right? That if you have the skill, will, and desire, like I said, ideally you have a mentor in mind that's going to be able to give you the tools that you need to move forward with success and to minimize your chance of failure, right? If you have all that, then everything is lined up for you and you can access it. Right now, speaking of which, let's jump into the personal credit factors. I'm going to zip through them just so that we're all aware of exactly what it is, right? And then we can come back again if you have any questions, and I can come back and go into detail, right? So here's the zip through. What is the personal credit profile that is going to line you up to get access to that 100K, 120K, 150K in the beginning, right? We're going to go through that line by line right now, and then we can come back. So DK Long Senior said, I've obtained 0% business funding, went through 3 rounds. How many times can you do this with banks? Is that what you mean? Let me know if that's what you mean. How many times can you do this? Went through 3 rounds. So here's what you're going to do is you need to be able to look at, okay, if I've done this before, what relationships have I leveraged already and which ones are still left in my funding sequence, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is, depending on how much time has passed by, you can rinse and repeat these. You can shift limits on your old cards into new cards. You know, you can do all sorts of things. You can get new 0% periods and shift into new 0% periods. And however, if something is kind of tapped out with a certain bank, and they're like, okay, we're not going to give you any more 0%, or we're not going to do, then there might be other banks and other credit unions that you haven't tapped, right? That you can get access to. Now, here's another sauce, DK. Thanks for bringing this up because I haven't shared this recently. Is if we talked about, you can take this pretty deep as far as what you can get. Now, there are other institutions in other states that are known for giving out high limits on the business credit side, right? Now, what you can do is create what's called a foreign entity, right? So let's say you're in Texas, and we know that there's a whole bunch of banks that give out local like funding or local approvals in Pennsylvania. We're going to open up a foreign entity from your same business in Pennsylvania. And now your Pennsylvania business can access those Pennsylvania credit unions, local banks, or whatever the case. So now we take, okay, I already did my funding sequence. I got these approvals or whatever the case. And maybe I'm tapped out here, right? So number 1, you need to get with the team to be able to answer that question for you, to say, based on what you currently have, these are the strategies that we know about that you can actually still squeeze some more out of these banks that you currently have. Or if you do these things, or if you close these cards, or if you do that, then you can actually position yourself to get more of what you currently have. Or the alternative is, okay, we can go about it this way to get additional funding. Or maybe we're leveraging another LLC, right? So getting funding on one LLC is one thing, but I might have another one, and I can either get from the same bank on a new LLC, right? Sometimes, or again, I can do the same LLC in a new area with a foreign entity filing. Please write that down if you are listening. All right. If you're tapped in here, I just grateful that you're here so you can hear this valuable information. And if some of you are thinking like I'm thinking, that can go very, very far because there's a lot of states in the United States that you can tap into, right? However many times that you'd have to be willing to manage all of it, but however many times that you're willing to do it, you can stack up because there's credit unions, there's banks that are regional banks, local banks, whatever the case, that each have their own system, their own desire to work with new clients, and you can stack that up in different areas, right? So, DK, so you said, are you referring to stacking the cards? Yes, I am referring to stacking the cards, right? The method I'm talking about to begin with is the 0% credit card stacking method, right? Where we're getting multiple cards from different banks, right? And we're going to talk about the nuances of that. I see that you have experience in that area. Now, like I said before, is our team can help with any type of funding that somebody needs, right? So if this is like, hey, I need a SBA loan to be able to buy a business, I need a term loan, I need something bigger, or I need a car, vehicle finance or something like that. We can help with all of that stuff, right? But that's if your business is lined up for that sort of thing. And that typically at that point is, now we've got full documents. Do you have tax returns for the past 2 years? You know what I mean? That show certain things. Do you have bank statements? Do you have bank statements that you can put up? I'm sorry, I was checking some comments. Do you have bank statements you can put up? Do you have all those documents you could submit? Have you been in business for a while? If you can show that, then there's all sorts of things you can open up, right? That we can connect you with as well, right now. But if you don't have that, this is why, like I said, this is super powerful, because there's a lot of people that might not have that history, or might not have the track record, might not have the tax returns, right? Yeah, if you don't have that, then here's what you can do is you can still get access to this funding. Because like I said, it's a formula. Once you have the formula in place, your personal credit profile, on your entity structure, you can walk in with that formula and get access to these approvals, right? And then you can stack them up and move on. Again, for those of you that are not familiar with how this works, when you get these, the only way this is tied to your personal, or we're leveraging the personal credit profile to be able to get into these business approvals, right? So when I have my personal profile set up and I marry those two things together, then I can access this. These accounts do not show up on your personal credit, right? The balances don't show up on your personal credit. They're not there, right? So I see Ruben, I hate to kind of call you out, but are you asking a real question? You said you can't not in your state. Let me know if you're asking a real question, Ruben, before I get to your comment again. Because are you talking about what I'm sharing about being able to access foreign entity funding? Let me know, and this will be the last time I address it before we kind of kick you out. But so let me know if that makes sense, right? So this is like a very, very powerful structure. So let's get into the moment of the hour. What is the personal credit profile that you need in order to be able to get access to this? Again, it's a formula. Once you have this in place, then you're ready to go, right? First, we talk about personal credit score. Credit score is a good indicator of where things are, but it's not, right? It's not the end all be all. All right. And DK, you said definitely so we need to talk. Let me know if you're saying we need to talk, because we definitely need to talk. All right. So so the credit score, you hear a lot of people say, yes, DK, yes, let's talk. We can talk. Like I said, it's probably even faster if you book a call with a team so they can just start talking about your situation. Like what do I need to do from here to be able to make some moves forward? Right? Because again, everybody's situation is different. Everyone's situation is different, and which is why these consultations are so valuable. And it does take time to dig into like what's helpful for you, your goals, like your state, your history, all that stuff. All right. So definitely 100%. You need to go to fundingmyfuture.net or hit the link in my bio and book the call like right now. Right. And get a slot locked in. So the personal credit profile, what does this look like? 700 credit score, 680 credit score. You'll hear these things thrown out, but there are people that have a 700 credit score, 750, 780, and are getting denied. How is that possible? Because their personal credit profile is not robust enough in order to get approval from the banks, because it's not what the banks want to see. What do the banks want to see? I'm glad you asked. This is what we're about to talk about right now. Please write this down. If you're not familiar with this exact setup, write these down. I'm going to go straight through them. Number one, the number of credit cards that you have is important, and the limits on those credit cards that you have is important. The length of time you've had those as well is also important. What is that? You have at least 2 credit cards with a minimum of $3,000 each on them. That's the bare minimum. You can get into the door with that bare minimum. Ideally, what's the ideal is you have at least 2 cards that have $10,000 limit, $15,000 limit, $20,000 limit, right? On your personal side. And why is this important? Is because it's like comps, right? Anybody that's familiar with real estate. So they have what are called comps or comparables. So if I have like a property and I fix up the property, right? And I say, I want to sell this property for $300,000. And you look at the other properties that are in the area, and the other properties have sold for $100,000, $110,000. Guess what the bank's going to do? They're not giving me $300,000 for that property, right? They're going to give me 110, 115, whatever was showing, because they need the real comparable to determine like, what is this actually worth? So this is the same thing that they do with your personal credit. They're looking at what's on your personal credit, and they're determining your business approvals based on what happens in the personal credit, right? So if you have only $500 limit card on your personal side, and that's your biggest card, they're not going to give you a $25,000 card on the business credit side, right? It's just like kind of logical once you start thinking about it. So this is why, like I said, at least $3,000 or higher, at least 2 cards. That's the bare minimum for you to get in the door. Ideally, you've got $10,000 or more, right, on a couple of cards, and you've had those cards for a couple of years. That's the ideal. Now, your overall limit, ideally, is going to be $30,000 to $100,000, right, on all of your cards put together. If you've got that, you're solid. So if that's you watching now, like, hey, Kyle, that's normal to me. That's what I have. These are the cards I have. I've had them for a while. Then you're literally sitting on 100K, sitting on 80K, sitting on 150K in the next 30 days, more than likely, right? Now, if that's not you, don't fear. You just need to start building like literally right now. And the best way to start building, again, is under some consultation to be able to tell you, okay, what exactly do you need to put in according to where you're currently at? What's the fastest way? Even if you have to wait and let things season for a while, what is the fastest way you need to move things forward, right? So let's go through. I hope you wrote that down, right? So you said, DK, your issue right now is you've completed a year worth of funding, is inquiries. So you didn't get the inquiries removed, DK? All right. So let me know about this. So for everybody that's watching, again, the only way that this impacts your personal credit, at least initially, is you get inquiries on your personal credit, right? Now, like I said, these business credit cards do not show up on your personal credit report. So you're using your personal credit to get into the door, right? To get into the door, but you are not having that account show up on your personal credit. Now, DK asked this question. You would like the inquiries removed, but not on open accounts, right? So we don't want to remove any inquiries that are on open accounts on our personal credit side. Now, here's the kicker. Some of you just caught it. If my business credit account is not showing up as an open account on my personal credit report, guess what? I can remove those inquiries because they're not tied to accounts on my personal credit report. So this is how that stacking method works. And hopefully that's what you've been doing, DK. This is how that stacking method works, because we're able to go and get from 3 banks, from 6 banks, from 9 banks, right? a funding round and according to a certain sequence and a certain order. Again, the order and stuff really does matter, you guys. So this is why when you're working with someone that knows and like can piece it together, that's how you get the max results. If you're going it on your own, you can do it, but there's going to be some bumps and bruises and roadblocks and time. And a lot of people that are doing business in the real way that they need to don't have the time to be able to stumble through like that and get these random denials and things like that. Right. So DK said you have 11 inquiries on TransUnion, 13 on Experian. All right. So DK, are you telling me that those accounts are tied to open accounts on your personal credit report? Or is it just cards that you got on the business funding side? Right? Because if it's just the business credit side and those accounts do not show up on your personal credit, you can get those removed. And you can either get a blueprint for how you can do it yourself, or you can pay somebody, work with the team to get it removed. All right. So let me know if that is your situation. Right. So let's keep going. So you need those comps on your credit cards, right? $3,000 or higher. Yes, DK, we can remove inquiries. Like I said, we can give you a blueprint if you want to take the time to do it. That's actually one of the most efficient ways to do it if you have the time to call in or maybe call back or some persistence sometimes. But a lot of times you can get it done in a day if you like put into it. Otherwise, you can work with the team to be able to remove the inquiries. Yes, we can do that for sure. Like I said, fundingmyfuture.net. Fundingmyfuture.net. Book a consultation call and jump in there, right? So with the credit cards, you got the comps. And now let me just speak to those of you that maybe don't qualify, right? Because I don't want you to be worried right now. Say, Kyle, I do not have any credit cards, right? Or my highest credit card is like $300 from Macy's or something like that. Like I don't have that. So I will tell you that in this case, you are not qualified for this type of funding right now. There's other ways to get into it. However, the reason I say to start now, right? And there's different ways you can leverage this information that I'm sharing with you for free tonight, which by the way, if you're getting any value out of this, I want you to please like this video, hit the like button, right? However many times as you can, and share this with somebody, right? Because this is very powerful and game-changing information because a lot of people don't know that they can access this, right? Now, for those of you that don't qualify, the reason I say to start now and to pay attention and still take notes on this, because there's other ways that you can leverage this information to be able to push things forward in your business right now, right? What is that? Number one is if you don't qualify and you get the ball rolling on your situation, let's say you have no credit at all, and it's going to take you a year to be able to add the things to your credit and let them season for a while, add these credit cards, whatever you need to do, let them season for a while. Cool, right? That year is going to go by either way. It's going to go really fast, and you're going to thank yourself that you set yourself up for success. However, you don't have to wait for a year to take action because what can you do? You can leverage what's called a credit partner, where I've got somebody who has the credit, right? And now, again, this is powerful because I'm sharing with you the exact things that they're going to need in order to qualify for this. So once you take notes on the rest of this list that I'm sharing, then you'll be able to know, okay, if you have a friend or a partner or somebody that has this credit profile, they can get the funding on their LLC or on your LLC if you add them to your operating agreement. And then that LLC can fund your entity, right? In the form of loans or whatever case, consult your tax person, right? But when can that be done? If you have that relationship and you're willing to work that can be done right now. So you're not ready right now, but if you have the skill, the will, and the desire to execute on the actual business and to make it add value to the world and make money, you know what I mean? Then you can move forward on that now, because now you might be 30 days away from that person getting the funding and you guys working together. And if you're going to be doing the work and they have the credit, I'm sure that they would have no problem collecting a percentage of whatever it is if all they had to do was just present their credit. All right. Again, they would have to trust you, but that's the thing that you can access like literally right now. Right. What's the other way you can leverage this? Is if you know these bullet points that I'm telling you, we talked about the LLC stuff, but this personal credit is really important. You can refer people and be making money along the way for just referring people to get funding. My last affiliate client that I just paid out about a week and a half ago, I paid her $2,252 for referring one client who was funded in about 20 to 30 days. And my friend is pregnant and, not thinking about anything to do with this. She didn't have to lift a finger or do anything else. She just literally thought of a person's name, submitted the name, and then a couple weeks later, she received a payment from me on PayPal, $2,252. Now, she could do that once a month and have a nice little year out of that. Or take it a little more seriously, 2 or 3 times a month. You do the math. And as far as how that can add up. So again, another reason why you can capitalize on this information right now and be able to move forward, right? So now, what is this? What is this? And DK, let me get back to your question. So do we have a relationship with bank managers for 0% funding? Yes, 100%. Yes, relationships. And the other thing is to know when relationships matter and when relationships don't matter. Because there's some banks and credit unions where a relationship is like top of the top, right? Like that'll get you in the door, it'll get you the highest approvals, it'll get you the least red tape. There's other ones where it doesn't matter at all. We can just apply online, right? There's other ones where we need to establish a physical relationship with the bank where it's like I have multiple accounts, personal checking, personal savings, I got business checking, business savings, I got a loan, pledge loans, and things like that. And I'm using that to build things up. Other banks, it doesn't matter at all. So you have to be able to know which one is which. And again, that's why the funding sequence matters, right? To be able to push forward, like what is the strategy that's going to work best for you, right? So thanks for that. Thanks for that question, right? So looking at this, next, let's go through the personal profile. Again, I hope I've laid the foundation for you to take notes on this because you can capitalize on this in multiple ways, right? So we talked about the credit card limits. Now, next is your utilization. So your utilization on your personal credit cards needs to be below 30% at max, right? That's just to get you in the door. Ideally, you're below 10% utilization on your personal credit cards. Now, if that's not you, let me share a quick hack for this. Let's say your credit is fine. You don't have any late payments, no problems, but your utilization is just high on your cards because you've been either doing business and trying to fund it yourself, or you've just been kind of lifing and you got balances on your cards. One thing you can do that you don't have to change any debt, you know what I mean? You don't have to pay anything more necessarily. But one thing you can do is this. Let's say I have a balance on my personal credit side, like I've got personal credit card debt in the form of $10,000, right? I've got that $10,000 and my utilization is up sky high. I can take a personal loan for $10,000 and pay down those credit cards and immediately change my credit score and my credit position. Why is that? Because the credit score, that portion of the credit score is only based on your credit card balances, your revolving debt. It's not based on your installment debt. And personal loans, HELOCs a lot of times, and different things like that, they're installment debt. So when you shift that amount, again, you don't have to pay anything else down necessarily, but I shifted that amount from my personal credit balances over to a personal loan. Now my utilization drops, my credit score shoots up, right? That's one of the biggest chunks of credit score points that you have in the whole calculation of what your credit score is your payment history and your utilization. Those two account for like 65% of your whole credit range. And then we're talking about like if the credit range goes from 300 to 850, 60% of that is like 400 points, right? So there can be a drastic change if you just make that one move. And the least that happens if you decide to do that, the least that happens is I'm actually going to be paying less because my credit cards are probably, if you're lucky, 20% interest, probably up to really 29%, 30% interest. And now the personal loan typically might be 15%, 17%, 12%, depending on where you get it from. You're already going to be paying less. But here's the kicker. Here's the next jump that you can do is now that my credit score went up, right? My profile is looking stronger because my credit score is based on those revolving balances. Now I can go and get business credit in the form of $100,000, $150,000, $80,000 in 0% interest. And now I can take that same 10,000 that I moved from the credit cards over to the personal loan, and I can technically move that over to the business credit side where now it's in a 0%, right? So I went from 30% on the credit cards all the way over to 0% on the business credit. And now I can use whatever I have left over to be able to execute my business moves. Right. Let me know if that makes sense. That's like a super gem, right? And the reason that's powerful is these personal loans, a lot of times, when you set it up properly, you can get access to them in 48 hours, 24 hours, right? To be able to shift things and set things up to where you can get access to that business funding and move things forward. Right. So again, some of you might be one or two moves away from exactly where you need to be set up for funding, but you just don't know what's holding you back. Right. So DK, you said, will the business funding have balance transfer features with them, and which banks? So balance transfers are one thing. I would just say like Elon financial banks typically have good balance transfer, like bonuses and 0% periods and low fees. A lot of times credit unions are much easier on balance transfers. However, this transfer situation, a lot of times what I'm talking about would be leveraging like a liquidation where I have a liquidation that I'm using on the card. So I'm liquidating my business card and I'm going to pay down like that personal loan that I had in our example, right? So there's lots of different ways to do it, and sometimes it's just a matter of what's the liquidation that I can do. Now again, with all of this, you have to factor in, okay, well, what are the fees to do this, and do those fees fit into my overall plan for business and how I'm going to be making the money? And if all the numbers make sense, then it's all good. Right. So that's another thing, you have to be like on top of the numbers. Let me know if that answers your question, DK. And let's keep pushing, right? So that utilization is critical. Ideally, you're under 10%. At the bare minimum, you're under 30%. Now, this is across all of your personal credit cards individually as well as collectively. So those numbers count for, if my individual card is over 30%, then that can be an issue. If my overall balances, all of them together, is over 30%, that can be an issue. So you want to actually look at both of those, right? So DK, thanks for the questions. Again, if you are tapped in here, please like and share this. But you need to make sure that you get on a call with the team to look at your situation and say, okay, what are my next steps? Is there something with my credit that needs to happen? Or am I just ready to go and I'm ready for funding, right? So you need to book a call with the team, fundingmyfuture.net, and take your next step, right? So DK says, what companies do liquidations that we can trust? That's a great question. And there have been some fluctuations, right? As far as like trust factor, there have been some fluctuations, which is why our team has taken it in-house, right? So they do the liquidations directly. All right. So once you're tapped in, working with us, and if you need that service, that's something that we can provide directly. Right. There's other people that I have used that I'm willing to share with you and say, hey, this person has worked at least in the past, or this company has worked at least in the past. And again, the fees and stuff like that fluctuate, but I can tap you in with that. So DM me, or once you get through with the team, if you still need a solution, like for some reason after that, I can help you with that. But there are people out there that do it, that are solid, that can do it quickly. Again, things are going to vary. So sometimes you get something that's very, very fast. Other times it might take a couple weeks, you know what I mean, to do it. So it depends on like how fast do I need to make my moves. And again, do the numbers all make sense, right? So again, this is super important. So we talked about the credit cards. We're going to keep going. Ask your questions in the chat. Like I said, I paid a lot of money for this information. I want to be able to share it with you for free. I want you to get your questions answered to block what other myth are you thinking, or what other block, or can this work for me? Or like, is this new business, or, how does this work? Or what are we talking about? Like, ask your question, because I'm telling you, you probably are able to access this. Now, if your credit is not where it needs to be with some of these things that we're talking about, and you have some issues to deal with, don't worry about that. Why? Because we can help to fix that as well. And a lot of our clients, even with varying credit, situations, are seeing results in the first 90 days. Right. So 90 days, it might sound like a long time, but that's going to pass by, especially with the holidays coming up. It's going to pass by super quick. And in 90 days, if you could be set up potentially to have your profile, cleaned up and things like that, and potentially be able to access 150,000, 100,000, 120,000, 200,000, like 80, 50,000 even, that would be a game changer potentially for you. So don't stress about that. Like I said, start today, whatever it is that you're doing. So next, we talked about the credit cards. We talked about the utilization. Again, please hit the like button. Share this with somebody if this is valuable for you at all. Next is the inquiries, right? So you need to have, if we're doing any funding, we need to have 2 to 5 inquiries or less on each bureau, right? Ideally, we have 0. And here's the other caveat that you can write down if you got your pencil out or your notes. If your inquiry is older than 6 months old, it doesn't have as much of an impact, right? So if it's older than 6 months, then sometimes you can squeeze by with it. If it's less than 6 months, then now this definitely counts towards this count, right? Where we want as few as possible. Now, we just talked about you're not going to really try to be removing inquiries on your open personal accounts, right? So if it shows up as an open account on your personal credit report, you don't want to be removing that inquiry because technically they can close the account and there's different things. Now, there's people that do it anyway. I'm just not promoting that, right? Now, if it's not tied to an open account on your personal report, technically you have the ability to be able to remove it, right? So even if it was like sometimes, like if you do like an auto loan or like go to a car dealership and they run your credit, they might do like 50 inquiries or 30 inquiries or something like that. It's like crazy, right? And so those, and maybe you didn't get a loan at all, or maybe you got a loan with one particular lender. So technically, you only have one open account on your credit report, and all those other 30 inquiries are probably tied to something that's not an open account. So you can technically get those removed as well. And that's, again, part of the consultation process when we walk people through what your options are. And we can look at that, right? So inquiries, low inquiries. This is a big one. At least 10 primary accounts reporting on your credit file. What are primary accounts? These are accounts that are in your name, right? And this is not just credit cards. This is across the board. So this is your mortgages, student loans, right? Your auto loans, your store cards, credit cards. You have at least 10. All right. Next, your average age of your credit needs to be at least 4 years or more. Ideally, you can squeeze in the door if it's more than 2 years, but you need to be at least 4 years or more. You can look on your credit monitoring or your credit reports or whatever. And a lot of times it'll show you what is the average age of all your credit accounts. Next, no derogatories, no late payments, no collections, no charge-offs, and no bankruptcy. If you have that, what I just told you, you are literally sitting on, or your colleague or friend or business partner or whoever is literally sitting on funds that they could be accessing in the next 30 days, right? Even if you don't have an LLC, because we can help guide or just help to set that up if need be. But all of that, the credit cards, the utilization, the inquiries, the number of accounts, the average age, and the derogatories on your account. Now, here's one little caveat about the derogatories is if your late payment is older than 2 years old, sometimes you can squeeze by depending on the bank, right? If it's older than 2 years old. If it's less than 2 years old, you're a late payment on your profile, then we need to deal with it. And deal with it in the form of credit repair, deal with it in the form of forgiveness letters and calls to the bank. There's various ways we can go about it, but it needs to be dealt with before you go for funding, right? So again, if that's you need to be on a call with the team ASAP. If that's not you, I still suggest you be on the call with the team so you can be getting the ball rolling in that direction so you can push things forward, right? So I definitely appreciate this night. I appreciate all the questions. If you have any other questions, and please squeeze one in before we get going, right? Where are you coming from? Like, what is it that you're looking to do in your business? And what are you looking to do in your life, right? And all of this, the business credit, these stacking methods can be a great intro to you getting to where you need to go. Scarface, I appreciate you tapping in tonight. I hope this has been valuable for you. And I definitely want you to start to take action on this, right? And that's cool. You say you're just listening. That's fine. right? But I want you to, this is powerful information. Like I said, the funds are real, the movement is real, like what you can do with it is real, right? Powerful information. So I want you to be able to absorb this and start the ball moving for yourself, right, in that direction, or be thinking about, okay, well, who else do I know who could benefit from this that either I can use as a referral, you know what I mean, or um, potentially a credit partner if I have like a business that I'm um, looking to implement, right? So you said the first time that you heard information like this was with Waka Flocka a few years ago. Yeah, this is powerful stuff, man. This is powerful stuff, and like this is across the board that people that know about it and leverage it, right, and leverage it properly. And again, information changes situations. A lot of this stuff is just we just literally don't know. You know what I mean? So it's really important. So I can't stress it enough. If you are um, in the mindset that I am, that I want to push towards freedom, I want to push towards elevation and adding value into the world, creating business, generating income, things like that, then this is a fantastic tool to be able to use to push in that direction, right? And now, speaking of impact, I have to share with you that I love a good win-win-win situation whenever possible, and this is why, in addition to me sharing this with you tonight, for the purpose of like, I want you to be able to grow and move forward. I want all of us to move forward, and especially like the next generation. And I want people that are coming behind us to have more information than we did, to be able to start on a better foot. And this is why I have dedicated a portion of my profits to go towards a fund that's going to help young entrepreneurs to be able to get into business, get into real estate, get into mentorships, into financial literacy, wealth building, to be able to change the generational wealth landscape so that everybody is better for it, right? So if you're working with me directly in any capacity, then that's going to be a part of the equation. And I like working with people that have that same drive to say, hey, we can all win. You know what I mean? Like a rising tide lifts all boats, and we can all win, so I definitely appreciate you guys for tapping in this evening. And DM me. You can reach out again, go to fundingmyfuture.net. You can follow me on Instagram or wherever it is that you want to find me. If you're here on TikTok, you can follow me and message me if you have any other questions. But like I said, I want you to be able to leverage this to move forward. It's literally a blueprint, you guys, and it's a formula. Once you have these things in place, the things that I just listed, we talked about the personal profile, we talked about the LLC structure. Once you have those in place, you're good to go, right? So, much love to you guys, and I will see you next time around. Peace.